I made the grave mistake of moving into an apartment that is right next to a train. Right next to a train that does its route like every 10 minutes. So we just gonna act like we don't hear it. Okay, let's go. Hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, if you are new, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna and I have another true crime case for you today. Just my usual disclaimer, this is all information that I have found online that I've compiled into a video for educational and entertainment purposes. Today I'm going to be telling you this story of Colleen Ritzer and the really surprising tragedy that happened to her. When I first heard this story, I actually heard it on Mr. Ballin's channel. I remember when I heard him say it, I was like, no. I almost didn't believe it because it was that unbelievable. So I digged into the story. I watched hours of the actual trial for this story. I try to do my absolute best to be as accurate as I can, as factually correct as I can, but the story of what happened to Colleen is really tragic, and I felt like it was one that I wanted to talk about just for the simple fact that Colleen's story deserves to be told. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining me today, and let's get started. On May 13th of 1989, Colleen Ritzer was born to her parents, Peggy and Thomas Ritzer, the day before Mother's Day. Colleen was the couple's firstborn child, and Peggy said that she was the absolute best Mother's Day gift that she ever could have asked for. Colleen was very loving and caring, and as a child growing up, she just loved helping people. And because of her desire to help those around her, she knew from a very, very young age what she wanted to do when she grew up. She didn't go through that exploratory phase where a kid is like, oh, I want to be an astronaut this day, and the next day they want to be a doctor. She knew when she was in preschool that she wanted to be a teacher, and her mother Peggy knew that this was the perfect career for her because of how loving and caring and just warm of a person that she was. And she really planned to help people throughout the extent of her life by being a teacher and making an impact on young people's lives. Colleen had a very mothering nature about her, and she was very excited when she found out that she was going to be a big sister to a little brother named Daniel. And soon after Daniel was born, they had another child named Laura, who was said to be like a child to Colleen. Like, Colleen was in some ways a second mother of the family because she was just so nurturing, really took them under her wing, and spent many days after school watching her younger siblings. That's exactly how Colleen got so close to her siblings, but the relationship that she had with both of them was very different. Her relationship with her brother was one that was like super tight. That's my bro. And from the beginning, he was up under her all the time. Like, their parents would have to come and physically remove him from Colleen's room when he was a little boy because he would always sneak in there to sleep on her floor. And no matter how many times they came in to pick him up and take him back to his own bed, the next morning they would always find Daniel sleeping at the foot of Colleen's bed. He just absolutely adored his big sister, and she loved her relationship with him. And Colleen and Laura had a really good relationship as well. Growing up, they were really close as sisters, just in a different way, but she was still very, very close to Laura. And since they were her two younger siblings, when they would have sports events and performances and things of that nature, Colleen was always there in the front row cheering them on. She was always so happy for everybody else's success, even more so than for her own success. And she would be thrilled anytime that they had a win in their life or a milestone was reached in their life. She was just their biggest cheerleader. Colleen was a really excellent student who worked hard from day one to get good grades. She graduated from high school in 2007 and then went to Assumption College and graduated from there magna cum laude in 2011. Fall of that year, she actually got a teaching role at a middle school not far from her house. And the very next fall, she was able to land a teaching role as a math teacher at Danvers High School, which was a place that she had actually handpicked. Peggy said that she was really selective about the places that she would apply to teach at because her safety was a priority. She wanted to work in a school that was relatively safe. So she felt like Danvers High School was a perfect place for her. In her first year there, she didn't have her own classroom. She was a rookie teacher in town. So she was kind of bouncing from classroom to classroom to teach her students. But from the very beginning, she formed a really good connection to her students and made teaching and learning math a fun thing. Math is not fun for a lot of people, myself included. I hated math growing up. But Colleen was the type of teacher that made math creative and different and very easy to understand for her students. She had such a great year, and then her second year at the high school, she had her very own classroom, which she was just thrilled about and was very excited to have her own space where she could teach her students. Outside of work, she was super tight with all of her family. So her relationship with her siblings and her parents was amazing. But she also was really close to all of her cousins and extended family. And she was that family member that worked to get everybody together and connected and bonded. And with her immediate family, Sundays was their favorite day to spend the day together. Peggy and Thomas knew that Colleen never missed a Sunday. She was always excited to spend time with her family, which is something that a lot of people growing up kind of grow out of or they're not as excited about. But Colleen was always that person who wanted to be home on the couch watching Christmas movies around Christmas time. She was an absolute enthusiast about Christmas. It was her favorite holiday. And like I said, she was a creature of habit. She had a really good routine where she would wake up at the same time. She always told her parents goodbye before she left for work in the morning. She had a specific place on the couch where she would do her lessons and prepare for classes the next day. So when she didn't come home on October 22nd of 2013, Peggy and Thomas knew right away that something was not right. Peggy tries calling Colleen a couple times. She sends her text messages and Colleen is not getting back to her, which is super strange because at this point it is well past the time that Colleen would be home from school. Even if she stayed after school to help a couple students out, she would always still be home at a reasonable time. So when she couldn't get Colleen on the phone, she decided to go and report her missing. At the same exact time, around the same time, there's another mother who is also worried in town because her 14-year-old son named Philip Chisholm is also missing. Now, Philip was a really quiet, reserved kid. He kind of kept to himself. He did his own kind of thing, but his mother knew that when he didn't come home at a certain time, she also figured that something was not right with him. Philip loved soccer. He was, like I said, really quiet, had a really tight group of friends, but didn't talk to many people outside of his really close friends. With his friends, he liked to play basketball and just hang out, but he also was kind of new in the area because his parents had recently divorced and his mother had moved him and his two sisters to Massachusetts from Tennessee. So police jump on Colleen's case right away and begin the search for her. The first place that they decide to go is Danvers High School, where she works at, and they notice right away that her vehicle is still parked out front, seemingly untouched. So they notice this, so they make their way into the building to do their rounds. They're checking in classrooms, they're checking in bathrooms, they're checking everywhere, up under everything, and there is absolutely no sign of Colleen. A rookie police officer named Officer Wannenberg is on the force. She had only been on the force for 2.5 months when she is dispatched out to Danvers High School, and she is alongside the teachers, the vice principal. They're rummaging through the school, and she actually gets called outside because there's a report that one of the people helping in the search efforts found a black bag that looked like it could belong to Colleen Ritzer. So Officer Wannenberg goes outside, and the black bag is on the ground between two tall boulders that kind of mark the beginning of the cross-country trail out towards the woods. And to put it in perspective for you guys, outside of Danvers High School, there is a pretty heavily wooded and foliage-filled area. It has bushes, trees, pricker bushes. It's just very heavily vegetated, so it's not a very easy place to search. But Officer Wannenberg goes outside, sees the black bag, and she decides to continue out this way to see if maybe she finds anything else along this trail. And she goes deeper into the woods, kind of away from the high school on a diagonal. And as she's walking, There's a couple other people with her. She has her flashlight and she spots something on the ground. As she gets closer, she sees that the 3 items are a folded up piece of paper, a glove, and a ripped article of clothing, all 3 of which have blood spots on them. So she goes on the radio, she calls in that she has found something that she believes should be taken in for evidence. And one of the officers on the receiving end of this is Officer Ellington, who is actually the K-9 officer in the unit. So he hears this over the dispatch and he says, okay, step away, step out of the woods, make sure everyone else steps out of the woods because I'm coming with my dog, so that way he can check around for scents. The fewer people whose scent he has to sift through, the better. So let's clear the area, and I will be there shortly with my dog Falco so that he can see if he can pick up the scent. The scent that Ellington had Falco searching for was whichever scent was on the black bag. So that was the marker that he gave to him. He told him to search, and he began searching. At this time, Officer Wannenberg is told to go and search near the dumpsters of the school to see if she can find anything, and she's called again to go somewhere else into the school, this time to the 2nd floor girls' bathroom, where there has been a report of something. She walks into the bathroom. She says it actually smelled pretty clean. She could tell that the janitor had cleaned it. There was a pretty clean floor in front of her. The toilet seats were up and clearly wiped down. Smelled like disinfectant. But as she's walking out of the bathroom, she sees a bloody handprint with kind of blood droplets coming from it on the door frame. And she also notices, you know how in high schools and some other places in a bathroom there's like a cement partition between the actual opening of the door and where the sinks are? She notices that on that partition there are blood spatters towards the bottom of it. So she calls this in, and at this point she's standing outside the bathroom on guard, just making sure that nothing gets tampered with. Around the same time that Officer Wannenberg discovers the blood inside of the bathroom, Officer Ellington and Falco are in the woods still searching, and Falco leads Officer Ellington to a gray sneaker that had been abandoned in a ditch not far from where the black bag and the other 3 items were first found. When Falco finds this, he fixates on it. He's a search dog, that's what he's supposed to do. So Officer Ellington has to literally pull him away from the shoe and tell him to keep searching. And Falco pulls him in a direction that's further into the ditch, and he starts like running. He's sniffing harder, which is a sign that he is picking up or identifying something. And he like floors it to this gate. And it's clear that whatever he is fixated on is on the other side of this gate. So Officer Ellington takes him around the gate and lets him go and do his thing. And Falco runs up to this large black object in the dark. Officer Ellington doesn't use his flashlight unless Falco fixates on something. So he doesn't see what it is at first. But when he gets close up to it, he realizes that it's a recycling bin. Not one of the little recycling bins, one of those big recycling bins that's like an XL trash can with a square lid on it that folds open like this. One of those recycling bins. So Officer Ellington walks over to the bin, he shines his light inside of it, and he's able to see that there's blood lining the whole inside of the recycling bin, and there's also some bloody papers at the bottom of it. And not far from this recycling bin, he sees among the trees and the foliage a body that is soon identified to be Colleen Ritzer. Colleen was found with no bottoms on and her shirt pulled up and her bra pulled down. She had blood all over her and was in a really bad condition. And not far from Colleen's body was a note that read, "I hate you all." Now let's go back a little bit. Remember that there is a 14-year-old boy who had been reported missing by his mother named Philip Chisholm. And right after midnight, police receive a call that there's a man walking down a main road. And the reason that this call initially came in was because the road that this man was walking on, think of a highway. It's only a 2-lane road, but it's open with no sidewalks. Cars go relatively fast. There's no lighting out there. So someone called in that this person was maybe someone that could use a ride or a lift to get to wherever he was going safely. So police come out and they ask him where he's going. He says he's going nowhere. They ask where he's coming from. He says Tennessee. They ask what's in his bag. He says a survival gear. Like, the way he's acting is just not normal. And they're also concerned about his safety and trying to figure out why he would be on this dark road in the middle of the night. It's after midnight. And when they ask him what his name is, he says Philip Chisholm. And one of the officers had a daughter who actually went to school at Danvers High School, who he recalled her mentioning that there had been a student that was reported missing. So he is, first and foremost, he's overcome with relief, thinking that, okay, I'm a parent. I can only imagine what the mother who reported this boy missing is going through. I'm glad that I can help and get him back home safely. But something just really didn't seem right about the interaction. So when they initially walked up to him, they did just a brief pat down just to make sure he didn't have any deadly weapons on him. And what he feels is a hard object in one pocket and something that feels like maybe an ID card or a credit card in the other pocket. Once they have talked to him for a little bit, they ask him to clear out his pockets. In the one pocket, it's a rock, and in the other pocket, there's some ID, some credit cards, some insurance cards, and then in his bag, there's a bunch of stuff stuffed in here. But one of the things that the officers notice is that there's a wallet that looks like it could belong to a female. Now, I'm not saying that a man can't own a girly looking wallet, but it was a wallet that would be a typical female wallet. And he opens up the wallet, and what he sees inside the wallet is a bloody box cutter. And when they look closer at the ID and credit cards that were in this boy's pocket, they see that they belong to Colleen Ritzer. And when the police officer asks who the blood belongs to that's on the box cutter, Philip says it belongs to the girl, so they take him into custody. Upon doing a search of Colleen's credit card history, they do find that when Philip had her credit card in his possession, he used it to purchase a meal and a movie ticket, and he was not doing a lot of talking, so he really wasn't helping them get to the bottom of what happened to Colleen. He was not talking much at all, so the police knew that they had to really continue to investigate to figure out exactly what happened to Colleen. Police get their hands on the CCTV footage from right outside of Colleen's classroom, and at this point they're able to piece together what happened to her. Colleen is seen walking out of her classroom and going into the girls' bathroom at 2:54 p.m. on October 22nd. Shortly thereafter, Philip Chisholm is seen on the footage peeking out of the classroom door, and it seems like he decides to just go back in the classroom. But about 3 seconds later, he's seen walking out of the classroom again, this time with his hood up, while he has like white gloves in his hand and is putting them on, and he disappears inside of the bathroom. There is a girl who comes up to the bathroom, and she turns around right away and walks out, and later says that when she walked into the bathroom, she saw someone's bare behind and just thought maybe she had walked on someone changing clothes at the wrong time. Right after this girl walks out, Chisholm is seen re-emerging from the bathroom with blood all over his hand. He walks outside of the building and comes back in again, this time with a white t-shirt on and a ski mask on, and he's dragging a recycling bin behind him. He goes back into the bathroom and comes back out shortly thereafter and goes into the elevator. He walks outside the school and is seen pulling it behind him in the direction of where the nearby woods are. The medical examiner ruled Colleen's death a homicide. It was found that Colleen was sexually assaulted and stabbed 16 times with a box cutter, but ultimately died from strangulation. There was sperm found from a vaginal swab that was done on Colleen, and it turned out to be a match to Chisholm's DNA. And it was also found that Colleen was assaulted with a large tree branch at the time of her rape and murder. Chisholm's defense didn't argue that he was innocent, but instead argued that he was mentally unwell and therefore unaware of the gravity of his actions. The prosecution, however, had to their advantage the fact that Chisholm came to school that day prepared. He had a box cutter, gloves, a whole change of clothes, and not to mention he came to school with a ski mask. This is pre-COVID times, where having a ski mask in broad daylight is not normal. This man came to school prepared with an action plan of what he was going to do. He knew that day that he was going to kill his math teacher. One of Chisholm's classmates reported that before the actual assault on Colleen Ritzer, he had been in the classroom mumbling under his breath, kind of talking to himself, just acting real out of whack, real strange. And the student didn't really say anything. He was just like, okay, this guy's having a weird day. But after it came out what had happened to Miss Ritzer, the student did note that he had been exhibiting some very strange behaviors that day right prior to the incident. Chisholm was convicted of the rape, armed robbery, and murder of Colleen Ritzer. However, in the state of Massachusetts, it is deemed unconstitutional to sentence a minor to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So while he was found guilty on all charges, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. At the time that he will be eligible for parole, Philip Chisholm will be 54 years old. Colleen's family is very outspoken about the bogus nature of the law that says that minors can't be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And she openly has talked about the fact that that's going to be a whole nother ordeal of torture for her family to go through. Like, they're going to have to sit through parole hearings and go through this whole terrible experience all over again and live with the fact that knowing that her daughter's killer could possibly walk free again is something that drives her crazy. She gave a very emotional testimony, just saying how her life has never been the same since Colleen's death, that things don't get better with time, they get worse with time, just how depressed and lost and broken she has been without her oldest daughter, and the impact that it has had not only on her and her husband, but also on their other two children. While being held in custody at a juvenile center, Chisholm actually attempted to attack another female. So he followed a staff member into the bathroom again. This time he had a pencil in his hand, and it's presumed that he tried to stab her in the back because the back of her shirt was ripped and there was a large scratch on her back. When this didn't work and the lady realized that she was being attacked and started screaming, Chisholm punched her in the face multiple times and then attempted to strangle her. But because some of her screams did make it out to be heard, other staff members came in, apprehended Chisholm, and the lady was fine. She was not severely injured. But after this, Chisholm had to be held in higher security and have a little bit more security watching him because it's very clear that he will be a repeat offender and that whatever is going on in his mind, I am not a psychologist, but whatever he is experiencing is something that will enable him to be able to commit this crime again. He showed absolutely no remorse throughout any of the proceedings. He was just stone cold, and it's something, there's a screw loose, something is not right. And it's just unfortunate because he's 14 years old at the time that he committed this crime, and he's well into adulthood now. But it's just crazy to think about that. I would never imagine something that horrific happening when I was in high school, a freshman in high school. I can't imagine one of my classmates doing anything like that to one of our teachers. And when I heard the story, that's why I was like, there's no way this is true. But it absolutely is horrifically, unfortunately true. I'm like, it's 11 o'clock at night right now. I never record this late, but I was trying to record earlier. I actually had a plan to record around 7 o'clock. And what did I do at 6 o'clock? I got on the couch and I fell right to sleep, and I swear I was knocked out for 2 hours. I woke up at 8 o'clock, dazed and confused, not knowing what day it was because it was starting to get dark outside. I didn't know if it was the next day. I didn't know if it was that night. I did not know. So now it's 11 o'clock at night. Actually, it's 11:11. Look at that. Can you see it? I missed it by a minute. Really? It was 11:11 when I first checked it. But yeah, it's late. So I'm about to go lay down again, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to fall asleep because I took a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day. Yeah, I just figured I would talk to y'all. I feel like I make these videos, but nobody actually really knows who I am because all I do is talk about true crime, but nobody knows what my personality is like. So I'm gonna try to make more of an effort to just talk and just be here and just be dialed in, you know, just be normal me. Just be me. So I went to the store today and I noticed something very interesting. Have y'all ever seen this? There was this, you know, the scooters that like old people will sit on and ride. They have the basket on them. It's like a motor powered chair, essentially. There was one of those parked in a handicap parking spot outside. I had never seen anything like that before, but I suppose it is a motor vehicle. You know, it's not a bike, it's not a bicycle, it's not manual power, it is very much a motor. I just was chuckling when I saw it because I had never seen anything like that before, but it didn't get towed away. So I guess, you know, I guess that's legal. So if you got one of those, feel free to park in a handicap spot. You're welcome. All right, my amazing people, but that is where I'm actually going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a wonderful day or afternoon or evening, depending on what time it is, where you are when you watch this video, when you're seeing my face. And you know what I'm gonna say. If you made it this far, you are loyal, you really are, and I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.